Welcome to this video in which I'm going to be talking about the Wharton MBA application. So if you are applying to Wharton and you're wondering how to go about the application, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to talk about what it takes to get into Wharton, as well as we will analyze the essays. We will try to deep dive a little into understanding how you should approach these essays. So let's go through the specifics of the school. The first is about the school. So firstly, it's a very quant heavy school in the sense it's finance focused. It has a certain rigor. So the first year can be you're not, one of the things that people have told me about some schools is they go to a school, it is very underwhelming. They feel that they will learn a lot, but they just have a great time and they party and they do stuff. But at Wharton, the thing is they work hard and they party harder. Right? I say this because some of my former students who have been there, some of my good friends who have graduated from Wharton, and what they have all told me is very, very rigorous curriculum. At least in the first year, very rigorous. So if you are looking at such a program, Wharton is going to really, be the program for you. It won't disappoint you. One more thing is, obviously you understand it's an Ivy League school, right? It's a top school, but it has a large class size, but I think among all the schools, it also has an global focus, right? I think it has one of the largest international population among students. So I think that's again a big hit for Wharton. The third thing is, I think it also enjoys this flexible curriculum where you have certain core courses, but you can add electives so that you can work on your profile so that, when you're entering for the summer internship. And that's one thing that you might have heard. In a 2-year program, the summer internship becomes very pivotal, right? In getting your final job, in getting an employer who's going to file your H-1B, correct? So for that reason, they offer the flexibility in the curriculum. Correct. So a lot of good reasons. Let's look at it in terms of the class. Last year they got about 6,600 applications for a class size of about 863. Correct. But I've said this earlier. If you are an Indian applicant applying to Wharton, your chances of getting in are going to be lower than an American applying. So don't look at the acceptance percentage. The actual number for Indians probably varies around 2 to 3%. Correct? That's the truth. Let's look at the GMAT scores. The mean GMAT score was 730 with a range of 530 to 790. Please do not look at 530 and get encouraged. If you are an Indian applying to Wharton, 730, 740 above is required. Maybe your profile is out of the world, in which case you may get in at a 600, but might take apply with a 730, 740 at least, right? Most of the students who are applying to Wharton have killer scores, have 750, 760, right? So you don't want to start off on a back foot, right? In case you're applying with the GRE, they have a mean GRE verbal score of 163 and a quant score of 162. Right? So if I were you, I would not apply to Wharton with anything less than a 330 or maybe a 325 at the least, correct? That's as far as the statistics are concerned. Let's now get into the essays. So they have 2 essays this year, right? The first essay, what do you hope to gain professionally from the Wharton MBA? Very simple, 500 words. The way I would approach, it's a typical career goals essay, and this structure can help you in other schools also, right? This structure will have 3 parts to it. The first part, I cannot jump and answer what I will hope to gain from Wharton, right? That should be the last part. Before that, you need to give a background. The first thing, I would like to know your career journey. Where were you? Where are you today? How have you grown as a person? Again, I don't want you to rehash your resume and tell me where all you worked and what all you did. As a person, how have you grown? Once you're able to put that in the first part, the second part kind of pivots from that, kind of segues from that and says, at this juncture in my career, now that I have done all of this, where do I see myself? That becomes your post-MBA goal. That becomes the place that you want to go to. And In order to get there, what is it that you need? I'll say this again. First part, what is it that you have done? How have you grown? Second part, at this point, where do you see yourself? What do you need in that future? What do you need in that journey? Correct? So you need to kind of address both. Once you have done so, the third part is when you really, kind of hit the point, right? Now that you have established this background, you need to tell me specifically how a Wharton MBA is going to help you. Okay, this obviously requires you to do research. So as I've said earlier, recommend you strongly to go to LinkedIn, reach out to people, see their career progression, see what they are doing, and make sure that you know things about Wharton that are insightful. Don't just go to the website and read up something and rehash it. Okay, you need to be very insightful. And what I mean by insightful is, if for example you are saying that you want to be in the consulting club, don't tell me you want to be in the consulting club. That's easy. Tell me what you will do in the consulting club. What background do you bring? How would you enrich them? How would you create an impact while you're at the school? That's the part that you need to focus on. And obviously, what is it that you will gain from that? Okay. One mistake that you need to avoid in this essay or any essay of this type is when they are asking you about a Wharton MBA, it should not be replaceable by any other MBA. So any sentence that you write, here is a great litmus test. Replace Wharton with Chicago Booth. Right? So if you're going to write a sentence which says, Wharton MBA has great professors in finance. Chicago MBA also has great professors in finance. What is the difference, right? So you need to be very specific that this sentence can belong only in this application, nowhere else. So that will help you steer clear of all the normal platitudes we end up saying in these essays. Okay, so that's 500 words. I would probably pick 200, 250 words for the last part and pick another 250 words for the first two parts. So you have a 100-word beginning, preamble. You have another 100, 200 words telling what you want to do, and a chunk of it, 250 words devoted to how a Wharton can help you, right? That would be my strategy. Let's look at the second essay. Describe an impactful experience or accomplishment that is not reflected elsewhere in your application. How will you use what you learned through that experience to contribute to the Wharton community? 400 words. Okay, so let's have a structure over here. Okay, let's have a format, let's have a framework. Here is what I would suggest. Let's use the START framework. What is the START framework? It stands for START. S, first one, situation. What was the background? When they are talking about this impactful experience or accomplishment, give me the background, because you are going to mention it in a B-School. It should have been important for you. Why was it important for you? Don't assume that people know this, right? Why was it important? Give me the background. Second, T, task. What was it that you were supposed to do? Don't assume the reader knows that. Okay, just because this was the situation, don't assume reader knows what you would have done. Tell him what was your plan. What was it that you had to do in that situation? STA, that is action. What did you actually do? See, the task assigned to you could be very different. What you actually did was very different. That once you got into it, you realized that the challenges were different, maybe. Or maybe when you started doing it, there were other complications that happened. What was the action? What did you do? R, what was the result of your action? Okay, how did it benefit? Was it a success? What is a failure? I would imagine that you're going to talk about something that was successful. It's not a challenge essay, right? So what was the result? What was, the metrics? What was the goal? Did you achieve your goal? And here is the important part, the last one, takeaway, right? So situation, task, action, result, takeaway. What was your personal takeaway? What did you learn from this? And that's where this entire thing hinges, right? So I would actually, out of 400 words, try to keep the STAR in the first 100 and 150 words, because I still need some space to explain, but I would still use no more than 100, 150 words for it, correct? I would use the rest of the 250 words to explain this part. That is, what is it that I learned from that experience? What was my takeaway? And how will I contribute to Wharton through that? So you need to eventually say that, right? How will I contribute to the Wharton community? What is it that makes me different? If that thing had not happened, I would have been a different person. That happened, hence I know. Then this is what I will do. So let me talk about an example, right? So one of the students had written about, so remember, says it is not reflected elsewhere in your application, correct? So that's also a very key thing for you to remember, that you might have probably mentioned it, but you didn't have space to elaborate, correct? So I could probably think of a personal story, right? So I'll give an example. One of the students had written about how he actually lost his parents when he was fairly young, correct? And he said that, look, and he didn't, play the victim card. So it's very important that you avoid those things. So he really spoke about what it was growing up, right? He had to actually go to college on a scholarship. He was working part-time, right? And you had the financial burden because he didn't want to take money from others, and he spoke about his personality getting shaped by that thing, and obviously now that you have spoken about what that personality trait is, you obviously can put it into various applications. You can put into various ways in which that particular trait can help you now that you're in B-School. Your experience could be anything, correct? But it's important that you make sure that you are able to connect it with what you can do at Wharton. I think that's also a very key thing for this particular essay. Okay. We also have an additional question in case you have not, you have got a huge gap, or you are a reapplicant. In case of a reapplicant, this is mandatory. Okay. If you are a reapplicant, focus on what are the points that you probably think has improved since the time you applied. And if you have a gap, don't try to give excuses, try to give a reason and say, look, this is what it is, but this is who I am now today, correct? So don't be too apologetic, don't give too many excuses if you're trying to fill in a gap, right? So that's all we had. I hope you liked this video. In case you are applying to Wharton, I would love to get in touch with you to understand if there is a way by which we can work together on the application. In case you like this video, I would love if you could share this video with your friends. I would also request you to please let me know in the comments below, and I would personally respond and try to see if I can answer your queries. Thank you and all the best.